like, I don't know what day it is. It's fine.
Do you know this song?
Yes.
We're going to pump up the heat. That's my goal.
Yes, please. There was a day in the 50s next week.
It's coming.
It
It's
is.
very exciting, yes.
Good morning,
Oh,
Cubs.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Russell.
Good morning, indeed, Cubs. It is Friday. It's January 24th, 2025, and we are so glad you're here for a fantastic Friday at Creekside. It's going to be awesome. Good morning, Mrs. Skelton.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mrs.
Good
Russell.
morning.
We have a lot to share today, so we're going to dive right in with birthdays.
Mrs. Skelton is very confused. So thank you, Mr. Hartman, for writing me. I highlighted birthdays through like the 29th that I should be reading.
Let's just
and
do a
that's,
few days.
That's not today. Yeah, I don't know why. Okay, so for today, we have Eviana in Miss Cox's room, and Mohammed in Miss Canatelli's room, and Bowie in Miss Stein's room. Happy birthday. Tomorrow, the 25th, since it's Saturday, Michelle in Miss Eggert's room, and Isabella in Miss Sprake's room. And then for Sunday, the 26th, we have Kathy and Miss Muller's room, and Kathy has a twin sister, so happy birthday to your sister as well. And then Matab and Miss Winkle's room. Happy, happy birthday, friends.
Happy birthday, Cubs. Weather time, Mrs. Russell.
It was so much warmer out there today at arrival, so the forecast is showing a little bit more sun coming. But today, a high of 23, and then the weekend you can see the temperatures are going up to the 30s, and our lows are not as low as they have been, which has been like in the single digits and feels like in the negative. So we are going to see some sun shining, and I'm hoping today could be an outdoor recess day
It might
if
be.
we bundle up. So
It might could.
We'll see what the feels like temperature is, right? But it's exciting to see the temperatures at least going up some. We need that.
what's the feels like temperature right now? Let's do a quick peek. If with this, if
Gonna
we were
put me on
going
the
to
spot.
Is
recess,
your phone
right
like
now.
your computer tabs? How many windows do you have up?
so the feels like
That-
right
that's
now
fair.
is,
18.
and what is the Creekside
20?
rule?
20. We
So
need
they-
a couple
two
more
more.
degrees.
So if it was recess now, would not be able to go out.
It would not. But
Okay.
we could get there by the time recesses start.
I'm hoping so for our Cubs. Remember,
Our Cubs
bundle
need to
up.
go outside.
Even though we're saying it's sunnier today, still does not mean it's summer weather. So
Not at
please
all.
wear your coats, hats, gloves, all the things if you are going outside at feels like 20 degrees.
Hey, a reminder, Cubs, that we have a couple special events from PTO coming up. We're excited about the skating party on Monday night. That's just a few days away. And we're excited about the dance, of course, too. And that's a couple weeks away, but your parents can get online. They can look at the PTO newsletter that was sent and see info about how to get tickets and all the other details they need to know for those events.
Yay! We have a very exciting announcement.
What is that?
We have our Cub leader.
Yes, love when we announce
So
Cub leaders.
Cubs this month, we were focused on perseverance. So the students that were selected as Cub leaders this month are showing perseverance in their work and in their days at school. So Mrs. Russell, would you like to
I
start
would
us
love
with
to
kindergarten?
start.
Do you need a magnifying glass?
Phew, this
It's
it is
small font.
very small. Okay. For Mrs. Benjamin's room, we have Mrs. Skelton.
Smudgy?
Smudgy, and I apologize. Excuse me. I apologize
Would
if
you like
I
me to
am
read kindergarten, Mrs. Russell?
mispronouncing your name. Miss Fiore's room has Jamie M. Mrs. Blackburn has Katie. Mrs. Ridinger has Chase. Mrs. Nab has Josie Sharp. Mrs. Churko, Charles Webb. Mrs. Cunningham, Jacob F. Miss Whistling, the font is very difficult, so excuse my everything. Could you please just finish reading? I'm
Yes,
sorry,
ma'am,
I really
I
can't.
will. Miss Whistling, Boaz, congratulations.
Sometimes we have to ask a friend for help. That's okay.
I'm so glad to help you,
Yeah.
Mrs. Russell. Mrs. Lerman's class, Ian. Mrs. Cavender, Mari. I'll keep going with first grade.
That'd be
Mrs.
great, thank
Todd's room, Emma. Miss Canatelli's room, Harutha. Mrs. Core, Angelica. Mrs. Musser, Rhythm. Mrs. Patterson, Avery. Mrs. Winkle, Whitaker. Mr. Harold, nope, that's Mr. Harold. Oh, we got off. Oh, no. Okay, let's try again. Mrs. Patterson, Aviel. Mrs. Winkle, Avery. Mr. Harold, Whitaker. Mrs. Sprague, Shaylee. Mrs. Mora, nope. Mrs. Morris, Emma. Mrs. Fisher, Oscar. And Mrs. Stein, King. Oh, we are all struggling.
Congrats,
You're
Mr.
to pass
Hartman,
that, aren't you?
Good
Oh,
luck.
I'm gonna try.
Good luck, Mr. Hartman.
All right, Mrs. Wozes, Joel, Mrs. Muller, Nathaniel,
There we go.
Miss Eggert, Larkin, Mrs. Kellerman, Nicole. Yeah, it's a little bit offset. Mrs. Nunn, Owen, Miss Shepherd, Jacob, Mrs. Allen, Henry, Miss Cox, Zane, Mrs. Waldfogel, Olivia, and Miss Buffler, Hans. Congratulations, second
Okay.
graders. Are we going back to you?
We're just gonna,
Okay.
next time I'm gonna bring my glasses.
Yeah. All good.
I didn't bring a coat and you didn't bring glasses. We're good. Mrs. Russell chose Amelia for Mrs. Benjamin's room. Mrs. Averbeck, Jocelyn, and Miss Sprague's room. Mrs. Tierney and Mrs. Reed, Hazel Preet and Miss Kellerman's room. Mrs. Dyer, Ryan Best. Mrs. Mino, Trenton, Narad and Miss Patterson's room. Mrs. Manning, Belinda and Mrs. Knapp's room. Mrs. McLaughlin, Abel and Mrs. Patterson's room. And Mrs. Robinson, Ouse and Mrs. Fisher's
You're doing
room.
so great. Keep rolling.
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Kellerman, Vera, and Miss Muller's class, Miss Abbott, Lillian, and Miss Fiore's room. Thank you guys for putting the last names of the teacher. That's helpful. Mrs. Chase, Major, in Miss Fisher's room, Mr. Winkleman, Avery Abel from Mrs. Cox's class, Mrs. Fetzer, Venice Gates in Miss Shepherd's room, Mrs. Seal, Paxton Olson in Miss Muller's room, and Mrs. Haynes, Abby Wells in Mrs. Winkle's class.
Congratulations, Cub leaders.
Congratulations.
We will celebrate
Yeah,
on
we have a
I think
random
Tuesday
space
afternoon,
here,
right?
and I'm
What date? I'm sorry.
Tuesday
Yes,
afternoon?
Tuesday
Yep, so
afternoon.
we'll celebrate then. It's in our schedule in From the Heart Teachers, so we are
can't
so
wait.
excited to celebrate with our Cub leaders. Looking forward to that. I'm also excited for the kids who bought experiences. on the
Yes,
Woot Woot
let's
Wagon.
talk about that for a
So
minute.
Love it. So I had some Cubs come in today and even yesterday, like, when are we doing that, principal helper? This is a really good problem to have. I'm so happy to have it. We have so many kids who signed up for experiences that we need to schedule those.
Yeah.
So I know for the principal helper one, I will work with your teachers and we'll figure out a good time to do that soon. They will be the ones who can let you know, here's your time coming up with Mr. Hartman. What about for your
Same. I'm gonna look at the numbers. I know first graders bought a ton of baking with Mrs. Skelton
Yes,
and
they
doing the
did.
cookie decorating. So I will have to look to see if that's enough kids for me to do one group or two groups. So I will be in contact with your teachers and get something on the calendar. We are looking forward to all the sugar.
And what about Mrs. Wose's schedule? Does she do that, or is the office doing that?
We're gonna have to work with Mrs.
Okay.
Wozes to figure out probably coverage for her classroom so that
Okay.
she can step out and have that painting experience.
So we'll schedule that for Mrs. Wose's, it sounds like, and try to find a time that we can get everyone that experience. So thank you for everyone for doing such a great job on the wagon. I have to give a big compliment to our entire school because you came with your Cub Cash counted and stapled. Makes a huge difference, and it makes a huge difference for your experience to be able to shop quickly and get what you want. You also are paying attention to announcements because when you come, you are able to see what we have and you have a decision made, and maybe you have a second and third choice also in your mind of what you want to buy. So wonderful, wonderful job. We have to restock our wagon because a lot of stuff is gone. All our clothing is gone.
All
Oh,
right.
yay. What about
wow.
the posters?
All the posters are gone.
Wow.
All the slumberkins are gone.
Whoa.
Almost all our hats are gone. So we have some restock to do.
That is
So,
exciting. That's a good problem to have because that means our Cubs are being so awesome. They're earning a lot of Cub cash.
yes, absolutely.
Especially when they can only buy 2 items.
That's right.
That's exciting.
right.
Yay!
What about our clue?
We have had so much fun with Clue over the past couple of weeks. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as we all have.
Yes.
So today, we don't have any more clues. And I think I said yesterday we have one more. I was wrong. Sorry about that. We don't have more clues. What we have today, coming to your teachers soon, is a Google form where your class can submit your final answer, your final guesses. Now you might say, but Mr. Hartman, we still have 2 or 3 things in this category and we have only narrowed it down to 2 or 3, so we're not sure if it's, this thing that Bendy buried or that thing, we didn't cross off a couple of them. That's where you'll have to make your best guess, and that's kind of part of the fun and the excitement is that you're gonna make a guess, and then we will announce on Monday what the real answer to the mystery is and who the winning classes are.
I'm so excited. I cannot wait to find out.
It's been fun.
It has
I
been
love
fun. Yes.
All right,
where we
anything
at?
else for announcements today?
It's Friday. Have a great weekend.
Nothing else.
Do
Nope.
something fun. It's supposed to be a little bit warmer.
Love it. Let's do our motto.
Here at Creekside, we take care of others, we take care of ourselves, and we take care of this place. Creekside Cubs care.
Have a great day, Cubs.
Bye, guys.
Please stand for the pledge.